Hello,
Hello, Venerable.
bonsoir tout le monde.
Bonsoir, Hélène.
So I think we're ready to start, and we'll begin like yesterday with some prayers, and then after the prayers we will go into meditation. I'll lead a meditation related to some of the things we talked about yesterday, so you can have a little more experience of those. So first of all, make yourselves comfortable, but not too comfortable so that you fall asleep. When we meditate, it's good to sit with our back straight as much as we can while still being relaxed, not tense like a wooden statue. So relaxed, but upright, and with our mind as clear and alert as possible. So while reciting the prayers, if you wish, if you're able to, imagine the Buddha in front of you, made of light, very beautiful, radiant, blissful. And remember the qualities of a Buddha: universal love and compassion for every living being throughout space, without excluding anyone, even those who do harmful things, terrible things. Buddha doesn't feel angry or hateful, but forgiving and loving and compassionate. And he wants to help all living beings become free of all suffering and the causes of suffering, which are afflicted states of mind like greed, hatred, ignorance, and so on, and also karma, actions we do under the influence of those states of mind. So these are the main causes of suffering. And the Buddha was once like us. He was once suffering and afflicted, confused, but he found a way to be free from this situation. And he wants to help all of us become free as well. That's what his teachings are all about. So see if you can feel confidence, even if you're not 100% sure about everything that the Buddha taught, everything that's said about the Buddha. You might still have some doubts about that. But try to at least feel some degree of confidence that the Buddha can help us, can help you to be happier, more peaceful, to have a better life. And if you're comfortable with the idea of becoming a Buddha yourself, following in the Buddha's footsteps and becoming like him, then you can bring that into your mind and think that that's your reason for being here, so that you can learn more about the Buddha's teachings, follow the path he taught, follow his footsteps, and become like him, able to benefit all beings. But if that is difficult for you to think or feel, then try to at least feel the wish to benefit others, and think that what we're doing here today, meditation and teachings, discussion, have the wish that this will be beneficial to others and to yourself. Okay, so those who wish to can join me in reciting the prayers. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So then the four immeasurables increases that thought of wanting to benefit others. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. And now we'll recite the mantra of the Buddha a few times. And while reciting it, if you wish, you can imagine light flowing from the Buddha, streams of light that represent his excellent qualities, his blessings, his inspiring help. And imagine the light coming in to your body, filling your body from head to toe, filling your mind, clearing away negative thoughts, emotions, and nourishing your potential to develop good qualities like love, compassion, wisdom, and so on. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. Okay, so for the meditation, yesterday I talked about mindfulness as a place to start working on our mind and recognizing ways our mind makes problems worse than they really are. Like the second arrow in the Buddha's sutra. So when we have a problem, it's like being hit with an arrow, it's painful. But then the way we react, the way we respond to the problem can make things worse, like shooting ourselves with a second arrow. And so this is something we've probably already done many times without realizing it. And so it's good to learn more about our mind and our habitual thoughts and emotions and reactions and the things that we normally do when we have problems, so that we can recognize how some of these are unhelpful, unskillful, and even make things worse. So mindfulness which is to become more aware of what is happening in our mind, as well as what we're doing with our body and our speech. So it's self-awareness, greater self-awareness. And so this is really helpful. It gives us a kind of window into our mind. And so one way we can increase our mindfulness is with a simple practice of meditation, like meditating on the breath. You've probably done this before, but it's always good to do it again and again. So just to give simple instructions, continue sitting comfortably with your back straight, your eyes either closed all the way or left open a little bit, so there's some light coming in, and that helps you to stay awake. Be as relaxed as you can, and let your breathing be natural. Just allow your body to breathe in a natural way without controlling it. You don't need to control your breathing. Your body knows how to breathe on its own. So just let go of controlling and allow the body to breathe. And then with your mind, with your awareness, observe the breathing, each inhalation of the breath and each exhalation of the breath, one breath after another. And there's usually a pause between one breath and the next, or between the inhalation and the exhalation. So that's normal, that there's a bit of a pause there. But don't let the mind wander away during the pause. Just continue to keep your mind on whatever place you can feel the breath most easily. For example, maybe your abdomen, you can feel your abdomen moving in and out with each breath, or your chest rising and falling with each breath, or the very subtle sensation around the nostrils where the breath is coming in and going out of the body. So those are some possible places where you could observe the breath, but feel free to find your own way to be aware of your breathing. The important thing is to keep your awareness on the breathing and not let it wander away, although that is difficult to do. So thoughts will come up, memories will come up. You might be distracted by sounds that you hear, or smells, or other feelings in your body. So be aware of what's happening in your mind, and when your mind does wander away from the breath to another object, anything that isn't the breath, gently let go of that other object and bring your attention, your awareness, back to the breathing. Okay, so we'll just sit and practice like that for a little while, and then I'll give a few more instructions. So now bring to mind a problem that you have. Don't choose your biggest problem, something that's really huge and overwhelming. Instead, choose something small, like something to do with your body, some physical pain or discomfort, or something you don't like about your body. Or it could be more emotional, something happening in your life you're not happy about, you wish wasn't happening. When you think of this problem, notice how your mind reacts. Does it feel aversion, dislike, wanting to push it away, wanting to get rid of it? And then ask yourself if it's helpful to get upset about this problem, to feel sorry for yourself, or angry at others who you think are responsible for the problem, or anxious about the problem, thinking it might never go away, it might be there forever, it might get worse. Do any of those things help? And then think about the Buddhist teaching that problems are not necessarily bad. If we are skillful, if we know how to use them, then they can actually help us to develop good qualities like compassion and wisdom and patience. But to be able to use those methods and transform problems into things that are useful, things that help us on the spiritual path, we need to stop having aversion to the problems and instead be more friendly, more open, accepting. Like Thich Nhat Hanh suggested, say hello to the problem. So try that out. He said, when breathing in, think, I am aware that I have a problem. When breathing out, I say hello to my problem. So just try that for a few moments. Okay, so I want to make it clear that when we do these practices for transforming problems and we talk about, accepting problems, that doesn't mean we can't try to find solutions to the problems, right? So it's perfectly fine to try to solve our problems, find solutions to our problems. It isn't that, like, for example, if you break your arm or you break your leg or, you have some injury like that, that you just have to sit on your meditation cushion and think, I'm going to transform this problem and never go to the doctor or never go to the hospital. So it's not like that, okay? If there's a way to solve the problem, if there's a remedy to the problem, then of course you do that. You try to find solutions, okay? But even if you do try to find a solution, it may not take effect immediately. So you might still have the problem there for a while, yeah? Like if you break your arm or you break your leg, that's not going to immediately heal. It will take a while to heal. And so for a while, you'll be stuck with that problem. So these methods we're talking about are helpful to be able to manage the problem before it goes away, before our broken bone is healed and so on. So they just help us to put up with difficulties and problems more easily than otherwise. Okay. Also, what is recommended is when trying out these methods that we're looking at in this course, it's good to start with small problems rather than huge ones. Yeah. I mentioned yesterday an analogy of training the mind is like learning to play a musical instrument like the piano. So when you're learning to play the piano, you don't immediately start playing Beethoven concertos, right? You start with easy pieces, very easy, simple pieces of music. And then you practice those, you get better, and then you can take on more difficult pieces of music. And then eventually you'll be able to play Beethoven. Okay, so it's similar with this kind of practice of learning to transform problems. It's good to start with small ones, relatively small, and then get experience with those. Then with more time, more practice, you can take on bigger problems. And then eventually, once you're really familiar with this kind of practice, then you can even use these methods with big problems. Like, if your doctor tells you you have cancer, or you lose a person that's really important to you, your husband, your wife, your mother, your father, your child, the loss of a loved one. I think that is the most painful, the most stressful experience that people have in their life. It's a huge problem. But if you have been doing these practices with little problems, little everyday things that happen to you, like your toast gets burned, or you break a glass, or little things like that, and you try out these methods, then you get experience with them, and then eventually you'll know how to do these practices, and you'll be able to use them for bigger problems. Yeah, so mindfulness, I mentioned that yesterday, and we just did a little bit of meditation to develop mindfulness. So this is really helpful, and it's even essential to be able to recognize what's going on in our mind, what kind of thoughts we have, what kind of emotions we have, what are our mental habits, our mental tendencies. And so once we get more familiar with those, we can start to recognize the ones that are not helpful and instead just make things worse when it comes to dealing with problems and difficulties. So this is something that takes time to develop, time and practice. So it's good if you can to do a daily practice of mindfulness, like the meditation we just did, of the breath coming in and going out. So that practice sort of gives you a window into your mind. It gives you a chance to see what is happening in your mind. Because when, in our normal daily life, we're really busy running around, going here, going there, doing this, doing that, talking to people, looking at the internet and our phone. And so our attention is very much going out of ourselves, looking out there at the world and people. And there's a lot going on. And so it's harder to recognize what's going on inside of ourselves, inside of our mind. So that's why it's good to have a daily practice of meditation, like meditation on the breath, so that we can sit down and calm down our mind, make our mind more calm and quiet, and then see what is happening, what's going on in our mind. So that way we can start to recognize things that aren't helpful and even make things worse. And be careful when you do notice things in yourself that are unwise, unskillful, or even negative, don't be judgmental. So that was mentioned yesterday. The meaning of mindfulness is a non-judgmental acceptance of what's going on in our mind. And that's not easy to do. Many of us, especially in Western countries, we have the tendency to be very critical of ourselves, judgmental of ourselves, even hateful. A lot of anger and hatred and loathing towards yourself. So this is a habit many of us have. I've had it most of my life, as far as I can remember, and it's not right. It's not helpful. Again, it's just something that makes things worse rather than better. So be on the lookout for that tendency. And if you notice it, if you notice these kind of self-critical, self-judgmental thoughts, know that that is not helpful, that is not right, and you need to stop that habit and instead learn to be kind to yourself, forgiving, compassionate. And that takes time, because if for many years you've been beating yourself up and hating yourself, loathing yourself, you can't immediately stop doing that. But it is possible, slowly, to change that habit and learn to be loving. And I mean, one way to do that is to just, think about a good friend, someone or your child, someone you really love, you really care about, and how you feel towards that person. Even when that person makes a mistake or they do something unskillful, you might be a little annoyed at first, but you usually forgive them and continue caring about them and treating them with kindness. So we know how to do that. We are able to do that with other people. So we just need to learn to be that way to ourselves. So that's one way. Sometimes you know, when I notice thoughts in my mind that are very self-critical, self-judgmental, it's almost like a voice inside my head that's saying really nasty things to myself. And I think, I wouldn't talk to anybody else like that. You know, I would be totally ashamed to say those words to somebody else. So why do I say them to myself? Why do I think it's okay to talk to myself that way if I wouldn't talk to other people that way? So that really helped me to sort of wake up and realize this has to stop. I have to stop this habit and treat myself with kindness, just the way I treat other people with kindness. It just doesn't make any sense at all to be self-critical, self-judgmental. And it just increases suffering. Yeah, it just makes us unhappy. So it doesn't do any good at all, and it just has disadvantages, drawbacks. So if you can recognize that, then that's something you can work on. Yeah. And yesterday I was also talking about how our mind has this tendency to invent stories, fantasies, with regard to problems, you know, things that happen to us. And often these stories are unrealistic. And I was thinking of another example from my own experience. This is something I noticed in myself, that if like somebody makes a critical comment, they say something critical, not necessarily towards me or anybody else, but they just make some critical comment. Or even if somebody has an unhappy look on their face, you know, they look kind of unhappy, then my mind starts thinking it's about me. Yeah, they're making that critical comment about me, or they're unhappy with me, right? And I think this is something I probably had all my life, but I didn't notice it for a really long time. And then I'd start thinking, oh, I'm such a bad person. I'm such a horrible person. Nobody can like me. Everybody hates me. All these kind of things. And yeah. So, like I say, I think I had this. I remember as a child and in school, I had this problem. I was incredibly shy. I didn't like to get up in the class and say anything or read anything because I had this feeling everyone is looking at me and they don't like me, they hate me, they see all my faults. And so this was a really long-term habit that I had, and it caused so much suffering, so many problems. And so, yeah, learning meditation and practicing meditation helped me recognize this this problem that I had, and then start to work on it. And so what I did was to think, okay, if somebody looks unhappy, it's not necessarily because of me. There could be 100 other reasons why this person is unhappy. They may be unhappy about something totally unconnected with me. Why do I think it's about me? You know, I mean, this is partly our self-centeredness, you know, like we tend to feel I am in the center of the world. I am the middle of everything. I am so important. So if somebody's unhappy, it must be my fault. It must be about me. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about that. And so that has really helped me. Now when I see somebody looking unhappy, or if somebody's making a critical comment, I just think it could be about something else and not about me. So that really helps me to stop that old habit of, you know, those kind of stories that just make me unhappy, and they're unrealistic. And even if the person is unhappy with me, it could be that, you know, they don't like me or they don't like something that I've done. That's possible. But is that really my fault, right? And if I check, have I done something? Did I do something deliberately to make this person unhappy? Yeah. And if I see, no, I didn't do anything to make them unhappy. If they're unhappy, that is because of things going on in their mind. Their afflictions, their delusions are causing them to be unhappy with me. It's not about me. It's not my fault. It's about their afflictions. And then I try to generate compassion. I think, oh, that's really sad that their mind is working that way, that they have those afflictions in their mind, because, it's painful. Yeah. So instead of feeling annoyed or hurt or defensive, I can feel compassion for them, and then I try to find ways to help them, to calm down, to be more happy, or I invite them to have a talk. Did I do something to upset you? Let's have a talk about it, and then try to listen openly to what they have to say and try to work out a solution. So those are much better ways of dealing with those kind of situations than my old way. Oh, and I remember too, there was one incident that was funny. I was giving a talk, a public talk. It was in a big hall, and there were quite a few people there, maybe 100 people. And I was up on a stage, and I started giving the talk. And within the first 5 minutes of the talk, a woman who was sitting in the front row stood up and walked out. And she had to walk, the door was in the back, so she had to walk all the way back. And the floor was wooden floor, and she was wearing high-heeled shoes. So it made a lot of noise as she was walking all down the hallway to go out the back door. So it was kind of disturbing, within the first 5 minutes of a talk. And I was kind of startled. And I kept talking, but in my mind, I was thinking, wow, she must really dislike me, that she can't even stand to sit there for more than 5 minutes and listen to what I have to say. So I was a little bit, rattled by that incident. But I continued talking, and I managed to do okay. And then a few days later, I got a message that this woman sent an apology to the Dharma Center that organized the talk, and she said she was really sorry that she got up and walked out, but she had been feeling sick. She'd felt sick the whole day, and she really wanted to go to the talk and listen to the talk, but she just realized she just couldn't do it. She was just feeling so unwell, and she had to leave. And so she was very sorry. She apologized. So that was clear. That made it clear that it wasn't about me. It had nothing to do with me, my talk, but it was something to do with her. Yeah. So sometimes we have the opportunity to find out that our stories, the stories our mind is inventing about things, are really untrue. So it's always good to have some doubt when your mind is inventing stories about things like that, to think, well, maybe yes, maybe that's true, but maybe not. There could be some other reason, some other explanation for this. And so, yeah, try not to believe in what our mind is saying. Our mind often invents things that are very untrue. Okay, so we should, in English, we have this expression, take it with a grain of salt. Do you have that in French? Meaning, don't completely believe. It might not be true. Okay, so yeah, just yesterday towards the end of the class, there was a question from Katrine, I think, about dealing with another person, and that person is in denial about something, like maybe a problem, and it's very difficult, kind of frustrating to deal with this person. So last night I was thinking about that, and I thought another thing you could try is to make prayers if you are comfortable with that. Not everybody is comfortable with doing prayers, but some people are. So sometimes making prayers can be helpful. Just to give an example of that, once when I was teaching in one Buddhist center, and there was a young woman who was a very active, enthusiastic member of the center. She would come to almost every activity that we had. She was really, dedicated. And I think she was still in university. She was still pretty young, or maybe she was a new graduate and just starting to work or something like that. And she told me that her parents were very unhappy that she was spending so much time in the Buddhist center, because they thought she should focus more on her career and trying to find a husband and those kind of things. And so they would often make sort of critical comments of her enthusiasm for coming to the Buddhist center, which, she wasn't happy about that, because she really liked learning the Dharma and practicing the Dharma and coming to the center. So it was, disturbing that her parents were so unhappy about that. And so she started making prayers, just making prayers that her parents would change their mind and become more accepting of what she was doing. And after some time, the parents did change their mind, and they started coming to the center too. They started coming to the activities and becoming very dedicated, enthusiastic members of the center. So it's hard to know if that change was because of her prayers or because of other reasons. It could have been just a complete coincidence. But I always figure, it doesn't hurt to make prayers. It might help, it might not. We can't be sure. But doing prayers, can help. And at least you feel like you're doing something positive, something constructive, rather than just feeling kind of helpless and frustrated. Yeah. So, yeah. If you are dealing with a person or dealing with a situation that is kind of frustrating, instead of putting your energy into being frustrated, make some prayers. And prayers in Buddhism, excuse me, there's different kinds of prayers. There's actually lots of different kinds of prayers. We don't pray to God like Christians, but we can pray to the Buddha, and also Tara. Tara is a female Buddha, and she's particularly, she cares about all living beings and wants to help all living beings, but she's particularly concerned about women because she made a sort of promise or a vow that she would always be in female form and help women, inspire women to develop their potential for enlightenment. And she's renowned as being quick to answer prayers. So, and we can pray to Tara for just about anything, even women who want to have a baby and have difficulty having a baby. If they pray to Tara, I knew a woman when I was living in Singapore, and she told me that for 10 years she and her husband tried to have a baby. They tried every possible way, and it didn't work. She didn't get pregnant. And then a friend of hers told her about Tara, and there's actually a prayer related to Tara that says, "Those who want a child will get a child." And so she said, "Okay, doesn't hurt to try." So she started praying to Tara, and within a couple of months she got pregnant and had a beautiful little girl. So, so even for things like that, Tara can answer prayers. So, yeah, so you can just make up your own prayer, use your own words, your own thoughts. You know, think of Tara, think of Buddha, think of Chenrezig, whoever you feel comfortable with, and then just ask for help. Ask them for help. Yeah, and do that, you know, regularly, and see what happens. It might help. Okay, so let's continue with the material that we started looking at yesterday, if that could be put up on the screen. Okay, so the next, so we're going through methods for transforming problems. So the first one is to be practical, using that verse from Shantideva. Okay, so let's look at the next one, number 2. Remembering impermanence. Okay, so I did mention this briefly yesterday, that this topic of impermanence is an important topic in Buddhism. Buddha talked a lot about impermanence. The meaning of impermanence is that things change, and that is simply their nature. You know, it's a scientific fact. Nobody can deny. So it isn't that you have to wonder, well, Buddha said that, but is it true or not? I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a fact of life, a fact of existence, that things are impermanent. So it says here, all conditioned things, so that's a term often used in Buddhism, conditioned things refer to things that depend on causes and conditions, things that come into existence from other causes and conditions. So, for example, our body hasn't always existed, but it came into existence starting in our mother's womb. You know, an egg, ovum from our mother, and a sperm from our father united and attached itself to the, you know, the lining of our mother's womb, and then started growing and developed into this body. And so many causes and conditions had to come together for that to happen, for this body that we have to come into existence and also to continue to exist. You know, our body needs certain things to continue surviving. We need food, we need water, we need air, right? We can survive quite a while without food and a few days without water, but without air. If we don't have air to breathe, then I don't think we can live more than a few minutes, yeah? So, and we need the right temperature. If it's too cold or if it's too hot, then our body won't be able to survive. People die from heat or from extreme cold. So for our body to come into existence and also for our body to continue to exist, it depends on other things, causes and conditions. And so our body is one example, but all the things in the world around us, all the material things, all the physical things, mountains and trees and oceans and flowers and crops, and also the things that are made by people, houses, buildings, cars, roads, food, electronic devices, computers, phones, and so on. So all of these things around us in the world, these are all conditioned things. They depend on causes and conditions in order to come into existence. And so all things that have that characteristic are impermanent, meaning they are changing every moment, okay? Every moment, every tiny fraction of time, like nanosecond, I think maybe the shortest moment of time, a nanosecond. So even in that shortest moment of time, change is taking place. All these things are changing. Now that's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Yeah, I mean, we know our body changes. We start off as babies, and then we become infants, and then we become children, and then we become teenagers, and then we become adults, and then, you know, our body gets old and eventually dies. So we know about those kinds of changes, but those are the gross changes. Those are obvious changes. But every tiny moment of time, our body is changing because it's made of molecules and atoms and subatomic particles. And those tiny, tiny things we can't even see with our eyes, those are not like frozen, fixed, you know, static, but they're moving all the time, changing all the time. So in every tiny fraction of time, changes are taking place in our body, but also in all the things around us. Even a wall, you look at a wall and it looks like it's not changing, it's always the same. But yeah, if we had the ability to look on the subatomic level at the little particles that make up the wall, then we would be able to see it's actually changing all the time. So you might think, well, okay, so what? What's the significance of that? Well, this can help us with problems. So problems are things that happen, and problems are impermanent because they depend on causes and conditions. There are causes, conditions, different factors that take place, and as a result of those, a problem arises. But a problem isn't something permanent and fixed, static, frozen, always there, always the same, but it's changing. It's changing every tiny moment, tiny fraction of time. And eventually, sooner or later, that problem will pass away, will go away, will disappear. Yeah, it's not going to last forever. So if we get familiar with impermanence, and the Buddha did say, you know, meditate on impermanence. He taught that to his disciples. Meditate on impermanence. Be aware of impermanence. So if we do that, we get more and more aware of the impermanent nature of things, then it changes the way we see things. Yeah? Even though we can't, like with our eyes, we can't directly see the changes that are taking place on the subtle level, subatomic level of things, but intellectually we can know that that is happening, and then that will help us to not be so surprised or shocked when bigger changes happen. Like one example comes to my mind. One time I was living in Los Angeles, and there was a group of people in Beverly Hills that well, it was a meditation group, so I would go there once a week and we would do a meditation together. In Beverly Hills, as you probably heard about it, it's where there are a lot of movie stars and rich people, and not everyone there is a movie star, but anyway, it's a wealthy neighborhood, and it's built on hills. All these houses are built on the sides of hills. And so one time there was a lot of rain, really, really strong rain. And then some of the houses collapsed because of the mud. You know, there were streams of mud, the rain and the mud, and the houses just collapsed. And so the next time I went to the group and to do the meditation class, one of the members, a man, he said that happened to his house. His house was one of the houses that collapsed and slid down the hill. And he didn't look too upset about it. He said, you know, because we've been talking about impermanence and meditating on impermanence, then when that happened, I just thought, oh, well, that's impermanence. But he said his wife had not been coming to the group, and so she hadn't been thinking about impermanence, so she was very upset. So that's a good illustration of how becoming familiar with impermanence, becoming acquainted with impermanence can help us when there are changes, when, you know, unexpected and unwelcome changes happen in our life. We'll probably still be upset, but not as upset as if we have never thought about impermanence. So it really does help us be more calm and more accepting of changes that do happen. So that's one sort of immediate benefit of this this awareness of impermanence. So and impermanence, another aspect of impermanence is death. You know, the fact that people and animals, living beings, will all go out of existence one day. They won't be there forever. And so that is a really difficult experience that we go through in life. I looked up online, I looked up what are the most stressful experiences that people have in life, and that was number one. Number one is the death of a loved one, someone who's important to us, close to us. So that's a really difficult, stressful experience we go through, and we all do go through it, you know. We lose loved ones, and you know, a lot of people they don't want to think about death. They always try to avoid the topic of death. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to read about it. It's almost like they want death to be non-existent. And that's really sad that people have that attitude, because it's impossible. You cannot erase death. You cannot make it non-existent. It's a reality. It's there. And if you try to avoid thinking about it, talking about it, then you'll be totally unprepared when it does happen. Both your own death, but also the death of other people who are important to you. So you're going to face those experiences. It's inevitable. It's unavoidable. You're going to have to face death. And if you've always tried to avoid the subject, then you'll be caught by surprise. You'll be really shocked and really upset, and you won't know how to manage. You won't know how to deal with that. So that's really sad that people do that, and it's unnecessary. And so the Buddha and Buddhist teachings recommend that we don't do that, and instead we think about death. We meditate on the fact that we're all going to die. Each one of us is going to die. So I'm going to die, and also my family members, my friends, my teachers, my pets, everyone in my life, they're impermanent, they're subject to change, and one day they will pass away. It's hard to do that. In the beginning, it brings up a lot of emotions, and our mind says, no, I don't want it to be that way. I don't want that person to die. But, just wanting that isn't going to make it happen. So it's much better to just get used to the idea and accept the idea. And then that will help us be prepared for when those things do happen, when we do lose loved ones. And also, if it's a loved one, if it's someone we love, someone we care about, I think it's only natural that we would like to help them as they are dying. We want to be there and give them support and give them comfort and, do what we can to help them as they are dying. But if we've never thought about death and never prepared ourselves for death, we won't be able to give them help and support because we'll be so caught up in our own emotions, our fears, our sadness, our grief, and we'll be like an emotional mess. So how can we help somebody else if we are an emotional mess? So that's not very satisfying. So instead, if we, go do the work of accepting death, preparing ourselves for death, then our mind will be more calm and we'll be able to help people when they are dying. And that is so much nicer, so much more satisfying, both for yourself and for your loved ones, than being an emotional mess. So anyway, that's all part of this topic of impermanence. So there's a lot of benefit to contemplating impermanence. And then, so when it comes to problems, right, this is something we can think about with regard to a problem, because I don't know if you've noticed this in yourself, but I've seen it in myself, and I mentioned it yesterday, that when a problem happens, there's sometimes this thought that it's going to be there forever. It's always going to be there. It's never going to go away. And so if you have that thought in your mind, and if you believe that thought, then you'll feel much worse. You'll feel, oh no, this is terrible. This is going to be in my life forever. It's never going to go away. So it makes the problem seem much greater, more huge, and more unmanageable. All right, so you feel as if you're kind of buried under the problem, and then it's very hard to manage it. But if you have familiarity with impermanence, if you've been contemplating impermanence and you accept impermanence, then you can remind yourself, no, this problem isn't going to be there forever. It might be there for a while, but it's impermanent, and it will change, and it will probably go away. And you can also think about problems you've had in the past. You remind yourself of, big problems that you encountered in the past, and ask yourself, were those problems permanent? Yeah, did they last forever? Or did they change and eventually go away? So then you can kind of prove to yourself, you have proof in your own experience that problems are impermanent rather than permanent. So that, remembering that, saying that to yourself can help you to calm down, be more relaxed, and not overly emotional and upset about the problem. And also, yeah, when our mind gets really emotional with, those kind of thoughts and feelings, then it can be difficult to think clearly and look for solutions, look for remedies, right? You can't think of any remedies, or you might think of some solutions, but they're not really helpful ones. They're not valid remedies, because your mind is just so confused and chaotic. But if you remember impermanence, then that can help your mind to calm down and become more clear. And then you can use your intelligence, your discriminating intelligence, your wisdom to think, okay, there's this problem, but let's see if I can find a solution, a remedy, something that can be done about it. Yeah, so you'll probably be able to think of solutions more easily in a calm state of mind. And yeah, I find this really helpful, and I've also taught it in courses. And one woman who came to one of my courses, she said that she often gets depressed. She has a problem with depression. And so after hearing about this method, the next time she found herself feeling depressed, she said to herself, it's impermanent. It's not going to last forever. It's impermanent. And she said that really helped her mind so much. And it also helped her to get out of the depression more quickly, more easily than in the past, when she didn't have that understanding of impermanence. So yeah, try it. It's very helpful. Okay, let's look at one more, and then we can pause and have some questions. So the next one, number 3, says overcoming pride or arrogance. So when things are going well in our life, yeah, when we're not experiencing any big problems and what we want is happening, and yeah, things are going well. So at those times, we may become inflated with pride. So according to Buddhism, pride or arrogance is one of the afflictions. It's one of the disturbing mental states that we all have. And it's a cause of suffering, a cause of problems, and it's also an obstacle to our attainment of enlightenment and other higher states of mind. And so it's something we want to overcome rather than to perpetuate. And yeah, a lot of problems come from pride. So it's easy to have pride in our mind when things are going well. We feel, oh yeah, everything's going well in my life. I'm a great person. And one problem with pride is that we sometimes look down on other people. Yeah, we feel superior to others. And so when we see people who are not doing well in life, they're having problems, financial problems or health problems or whatever, then we may feel superior to them. And that's not a healthy state of mind. That's not a good state of mind. But then when problems happen in our life, then this gives us the chance to recognize that we're not as great as we thought. We're not perfect. We're not beyond human problems. So we're still just an ordinary human being like everybody else. And so that helps us be more humble and less proud. So kind of having pride is like being inflated, like a big balloon, big fat balloon. And And so problems can sort of deflate that balloon and help us be more humble. So humility is a good quality. That's a positive quality. Also from the point of view of Dharma, spiritual practice. Because if we are proud, if we are arrogant, then we may even feel we are superior to our teachers. When we meet spiritual teachers who may have a lot of knowledge, a lot of good qualities, a lot of wisdom that they can teach us, so we can benefit a lot from those teachers. But if we have the habit of being proud and arrogant, looking down on others, we may even look down on teachers. We may find fault with them and feel superior to them. And when that happens, it's like our mind closes. We close our mind to them. And so none of their wisdom, none of their good qualities will be able to come in and benefit us. And so it's said to be a big obstacle to spiritual growth, following the spiritual path. Whereas humility, if we have an attitude of humility, then that makes our mind open and receptive. And then we can learn from not just teachers, we can learn from anybody. We can even learn from people we meet in the streets. We can learn from homeless people, from animals, from babies. So everyone has something to teach us, yeah? If we have an open mind and a humble mind and a respectful mind towards others. So, yeah, problems can help to reduce our pride and increase humility, which is a good thing for us in our spiritual practice, but also in our relationships with other people. So just in our relationships, yeah. We probably know people who are proud. Yeah, there's probably people in our family, people in our circle of friends and neighbors who are proud and arrogant. So how do you feel about those people? Do you feel happy and comfortable with their arrogance? Or do you feel, that's not nice, I don't like that? So it puts people off. Pride is off-putting for others. So if we have pride, we show pride, then, others will want to keep a distance from us rather than be close to us and have admiration for us. Okay, so I thought at the start of our next session, we could do a little bit of meditation on these points to get more familiar with them. But we have a few minutes left in this session. If anyone has a question you'd like to ask, anything that I've talked about. I see a question in the chat. How does Tara make a baby? I don't think Tara creates a baby. Excuse me. That's a good question. Yeah, how do prayers work? And it's not so clear, it's not so clearly explained in the Buddhist teachings how prayers work. But what I have thought of, and I have, discussed this with other teachers, and they agree. So the things that happen to us, the experiences that we have in our life, are mainly the result of our karma. Right? So we have lots of karmic imprints of actions that we did in the past, in this life, but also in our past life. So we have this huge bundle of karmic seeds or karmic imprints. And some of them are good karma, when we did acts of generosity and we lived ethically, we practiced patience. So when we did good things, then those left good karmic imprints in our mind, and it's the good karma that ripens as good experiences, nice experiences. But we also did bad things, harmed others, lied, cheated, and so on. And so those actions left imprints of bad karma, and those are the cause of bad things happening to us. So we have this huge collection of all kinds of karmic seeds in our mind. And it's not definite how this actually works, but it said that, yeah, when certain causes and conditions come together, then a karmic seed will ripen and produce an experience. And so I think prayers, yeah, if we are making prayers for ourselves, or if someone else is making prayers for us, I think the prayers are like water for seeds. Just like if you have seeds, if they are dry, they're just sitting on the top of the table and there's no moisture, they're not gonna grow. They're not gonna turn into sprouts and plants. They need water, they need moisture. So as soon as you put water, then they can start to change and bring their results, their sprouts. So I think our karmic seeds are like that. They're just sitting there waiting for water, not literal water, but water in the sense of some kind of energy that will cause them to ripen. And so prayers is positive energy. And so it's like water to nourish our good seeds, the seeds of our good karma. So that's how I understand it. So the woman who made prayers to have a baby, she probably had the karma to have a baby, right? The karmic seed to have a baby was there in her mind, and it just needed some additional nourishment for it to grow and make it happen. So it isn't that Tara somehow did a magic trick and made her have a baby, but praying to Tara, her prayers to Tara, she probably prayed very sincerely for several months. I think she was praying every day for several months with a lot of, devotion and positive thoughts. And so I think it's that positive energy that she herself was creating that nourished the positive seed for her to have a baby. I think that's how it works. It's not normally explained in Buddhist texts. And similar, like if somebody we know is sick, right? And we want them to recover from their sickness, so we make prayers. So that's a very common kind of prayer that's made in Buddhism, like praying for someone to recover from illness. And just as in other religions, sometimes the prayers work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the person recovers, sometimes they don't, they die. So the reason, again, it's not mainly the prayers, but rather the person's own karma. So if that person who is sick has some good karma that they can recover and continue living for some more time, if they have that good karma, then the prayers that people make are nourishing their karma, the karmic seeds, so that they can ripen and bring those results. But if the person doesn't have those good karmic seeds to recover, and instead they may have the karma to get more sick and even die, so then, however many prayers are made will not help. Does that make sense? But that is a good question. Yeah, how do prayers work? I mean, there's so many stories. There was once I was in one Dharma center in America, and somebody that I know had friends, a couple with a little boy. And this little boy, I think he was 5 or 6 years old, he suddenly became very, very, very sick. And the doctors found that he had some kind of rare bone cancer. I think it was a kind of bone cancer, very, very rare. And they gave him something like 50% chance of survival, maybe even less. I don't remember, but it was, very uncertain that he would survive this illness. And I went to see him in the hospital, and it was so sad. This tiny little body lying there on the bed, just completely, no energy at all. And so lots of people made prayers for him. I contacted my teachers and other Dharma groups around the world, and I said, please make prayers for this little boy. His parents or his grandparents were Catholic, and so they contacted, all these Catholic groups. There were, Catholic nuns all over the world who were making prayers for this little boy. And he recovered. And the doctors thought, wow, I mean, it was kind of a miracle, because they didn't know what to do. I think there was no cure for that illness. So it was kind of miraculous that he recovered. So I think, we don't know whether our prayers will actually bring about what we pray for. It's not definite, because there are other factors involved. There is the person's karma and so on. So, but at least we can try, and we'll probably feel good that we are at least doing something, something positive, something constructive for this person. So we've actually come to the end of this time. So I see there's a few more questions. So maybe in the next session, I'll start with questions, or maybe we'll do a meditation and then I'll take care of the questions, if that's okay. If you can wait till the next session. Okay. So let's have our break now for 1 hour, and then we'll meet again at 7:30 your time. Thank you.